Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay, nice. Let me share my screen, and today I want to represent the new feature which we have at the Elements for a Grid, and this is a just image series. As we know that we have a main image here, and under the keywords line, we have a new block which has name more from this series, and we have additionally 4 images. So those images are images that marked by the image creator owner. Yes, at the one they are in serial. So and every is its own series. Yes, and switching between images, we can just see that related images in series appear. So, and what I would say that this request is asynchronous, so it doesn't block image load, so it's good for performance. And the next step will be just to introduce the show more button. On click it, you will get more images from this serial to which the main image is related. So yeah, maybe that's all.
Okay,
Do you have any
nice.
questions?
Can you go back to the previous one that you had selected with the Earth?
Oh, 1 second. Yes.
That one image, is that the way it is? It looks squashed. The third image? Is there?
Yes. Yes, but it's just for initial implementation, and so we will add more style just when we have a final design. Am
Okay.
I
So
right,
there's like
Sergey?
a fixed height or something right now going on, I guess, in the style.
Yes.
Okay.
Also, we will add here under the first image the show more button. Like here we have the view all keywords, yes, and here we will have the show more button. But now we just have this ability to filter out the image serial by image ID. Yes, and that's nice.
Cool.
Yep, maybe that's all from me.
Cool.
Yeah,
Actually,
couple of notes. I understand it's just like first take on this implementation. We have a mockup that explains the spacing between the elements in the image details, and it explains the spacing between buttons, for example, keyword themselves and view all button and the size of the button. So just pay closer attention to those details, because basically like following those guidelines make the impression of the design to be like complete, because now it really looks really all of the elements really close to each other, and some of the images might look even squashed because of that or because other reasons. So yeah, that's it.
Say, Elena, I'm wondering, I think it would be good somewhere on here, and I don't know if we had this in the original design. It would be good if there was a link to allow you to view it on Adobe Stock. That way, if there's any issue or whatever. So what I was thinking, maybe we could mock this up. I was thinking where he has file highlighted, maybe that could be a link. Um, you know, and there could be a little alt text when you hover over it and it says view on Adobe Stock, and if you click
But
on it,
what
what do
is
you
the
think?
purpose of that? We agreed that we navigate to stock only in case we are not able to complete some of the actions directly in Magento admin.
Yeah, no, I mean it's good. I guess in case I don't know, like you go here and the image thumbnail is broken, or
Um,
I don't know. I'm just trying to think of like some issue where you may see it, or you may want to confirm that it's correct, or maybe it looks weird or something. I don't know. anyway, just if you just think about it, but it may not be needed. I was just trying to think of a.
Yeah, we can think about that. It will be beneficial for me to understand more clear, like what is the use case, so what can go wrong, and if we can't handle that exceptions properly in admin side, it's okay to kind of add a link, but like having any external links, it in Magento admin will increase the risk that people just get navigated there by accident, and we can obviously open that link in a separate tab. But I mean,
Yeah. Well, that's what I would mean to open in a separate tab, but also to give some kind of indication to the user that they're going to an external thing, which I don't know if you have sometimes styling will have a little icon with an arrow pointing out to show that, this will take you to another tab or take you to another page. But yeah, I mean, it
I
just
got it.
it may not come up. It may not be an issue. Like you said, I think most importantly is on the licensing. If we run into problems with licensing, that's where we absolutely should have that. But
Yeah. Let's kind of move forward with that,
yeah,
and guys implement that functionality in a complete form. And if we account some of the kind of problems with the display and the related images, or something that we need to find the kind of solution for, so we can consider adding this link.
yeah. This looks good though.
Yeah, I would say there is an additional way to take a closer look to an image. So eventually we'll add the See More button after the fourth image in the More from the series section. And the user will be able to navigate to the series and open the full preview from that screen.
And also, is it possible to click on the related image right from this view? Maybe I missed it.
No, it's not possible, and I'm not sure what should happen.
But just
if you
click here, like click on this first image related one. What will happen?
Yes, I clicked the button. At this moment, nothing.
Okay, so but in the final implementation, the image preview needs to be kind of updated with the image that you just clicked, right?
No. So should we
No?
replace?
Yeah.
Like we are currently on this page with specific search results, and we are looking at one of the images, like
Yeah,
one
and
of
if you click
32 images. And if we click on the one
Yeah.
of the More from the series images, should this image replace an
Yeah,
existing?
that's a question because there's no guarantee that this image in the series will have the same criteria because the series is determined by the photographer. So the photographer could choose to upload a bunch of unrelated images all at once.
But
And
what is the
so the
problem with
second
that?
image.
We're not
Well,
going to update the query. We just
yeah.
update the preview image to display the details of the image that user just clicked on. And this is the behavior of the stock, like original stock. And I assume that this is what users would expect to have.
Right. Let me see. On stock, does it? I'm checking right now. Does it actually replace it, or does it open a detail? Oh, yeah, you're right. It does. Yeah, it replaces the image. So on stock, all of those fields get updated. The title, dimensions, file type, file number, etc., keywords.
Yeah, but if you close
And I have a question about this.
Yeah, go on.
Oh, okay. So you just mentioned that related image from this area can have another Siri ID. I'm right? Or be related to another area?
So There's actually,
For example,
yeah. So more from this series, yeah. So like, here actually here's a good example. Let me put. If you guys have Slack, I can post it. I don't have because I don't have Blue Jeans open, but I can post it to the Adobe Stock channel. I'll say channel. You guys have channel on here turned off, so I'm not sure if you guys will be able to see this. I posted a link in the Slack Adobe Stock channel. If you go there, this actually is an example where the images in the series are different. Yeah, exactly. But to Elena's point, if you click on any of those images, I think it will still replace what we're looking at, but the search query and everything is still the same. It still says moonlight on ocean, and all the other images around it have not changed as far as I can tell. So everything else is still the same. Just this component has updated.
Yeah, and also it's not possible to use the forward and back
Right.
buttons because
Interesting.
basically
Yeah.
you're kind of outside of that query, so you're just like sneaking peeking some other images maybe not related to that. So it's just
Well, let me see. Does it actually disable them? I see they're grayed out.
it's not, but if it's not possible to use them, as I understand.
Oh yeah.
Yes, they're enabled, but they're not clickable. Oh no,
They're weird. You think they should just
They are
make them
clickable.
disable.
I checked they
They're
haven't
clickable, but they
clickable.
don't do anything.
They were not clickable in the previous image, but now they are. Like I selected
Okay, they are weird because
Yeah,
now
I
they are
saw
not
they're
that
not
might be
working.
a bug on our side. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I agree that clicking on those images should do something. What it does, I'm not, I don't know if stock cares
Yeah, I
100%.
would prefer to keep the consistent behavior with stock because if users have experience with stock, we just need to keep that consistency as much as possible if API supports that.
Do we
I
have...
was going to say that, guys, have you noticed that although the images in the grid don't change when you click on more from this series, so the image preview update and the rest of the images in the grid don't update, but the more from the series images change. Not sure if does that make sense?
Yes, because Siri ID is actually the ID of the image. So every time the image changes, its Siri is different.
Yeah.
Okay, which... Elena, do we have this description of this behavior as part of some of our stories?
Yeah, it's part of the stories that we have in Wiki.
Let me find that one, just to clarify the description.
Yeah, so just go to the roadmap. Yeah, So let's take a look.
Series.
Series, it's like, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure if last acceptance criteria is achievable because the native behavior in stock now looks very confusing. It either work or not. I mean, I don't know if we can do it. But if we
So,
can, preferably it works and it just navigates through their related images.
okay, so these buttons would navigate us through the images from series once an image is selected. That is the
Yeah.
goal?
Yep.
Okay, we'll see if it's achievable.
Notice on that image that there's a lot of keywords, so just something to pay attention to that,
But we
just
need
to
to
make sure that
display
the
only
design is
5.
flexible.
Yeah, if we take a look on the story, I specify that we need to display limited number. It's either 5 or something.
Well, I
And
notice it says more, see more, or view all. So I was wondering what
yeah,
happens
view
when you
all.
view all. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, so yeah, flexible. Looks good.
It's still, the UI still will be updated a bit, and these keywords will be a bit smaller in size and grayish.
It's actually a good
color.
question. Do we need to have a opposite action like hide? I don't know. If I
We'll
want to
hide
go
if we.
back. Okay. Okay. Yeah,
So the
I can
idea
ask
is
you,
to
Jim.
I
them
mean, as soon
during
as you click
navigation.
on another image, I guess it collapses them again. So it's not such a.
Yeah, not a big problem for sure.
Yeah, there is a pull request for this functionality. It's not managed yet at this point.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Alex, for the implementation of the start of the implementation for the series. It looks nice. Guys, any other volunteers to demo the contributions?
I don't have anything to demo, but I have just a quick update. Today we merged pull request to the Magento 2 core with fix to media gallery browser, and probably all issues connected to JavaScript on the Adobe Stock integration will be resolved. So I recommend to update your Magento 2 forks and get the latest changes with this fix.
That's a great news.
It is indeed.
Thanks, Stas. Okay, good. So let me show you a couple of more updates. So the first one is that we actually have more tests running on Travis right now. So I added API and integration test to the Travis test suite. So if you update your branch and look at the result of Travis, you'll see that we now have static unit integration and an API tests. I'm currently working on adding functional tests to Travis as well, but it can take some time. And yeah, probably that's the only major update. Also, yeah, go ahead, Raul.
I also saw a ticket to add code coverage to the unit test.
Yeah,
You create recently. I think that's great thing to do.
yeah, that would be really good to track our code coverage so that we know how efficient, like what's code coverage of our tests in general. Probably, I don't know, if somebody wants to take this task and implement it with CodeCov, that would be good. Otherwise, after the MFTF tests, I'm planning to switch to it as well. Yeah. Finally, We have a question in one of the pull requests. Actually, in the pull request that is adding sign-in link to the grid. So the thing is that in order to add a sign-in link and fetch the user information as part of sign-in, we need to change our scope. Like if you're using Creative SDK, we have to pass Creative SDK as part of our request to the server. Let me find that configuration. And if we are using Adobe Stock Integration, we have to pass different parameters to URL. Here it is. So Adobe Stock works with OpenID scope, and it will be denied to access the API with Creative SDK Stock and Creative SDK integration. Can access OpenID and Creative SDK, so it can access user information. So in order to implement that, our integration should know which integration the Magento user is selected on Adobe side. And there is no clear way to access this information unless we'll provide a configuration input for user to specify if he wants to use Creative SDK or Adobe Stock Integration. What do you think about that, Christopher or Olena?
Where do you think they would put this in the when they're putting in the secret and the API key? They might set it.
Yeah. So in the configuration near the secret key, we can put a select, say in Creative SDK or Adobe Stock integration type.
I wonder if we could just require one and then do some sort of test when you test the connection to see if, well, of course, test connection today doesn't test the sign-in mechanism. All it does is see if the API key works. I was trying to think that if we required one of them, like let's say we said always use Creative SDK, and then it tests, and if that scope fails, then we can throw an error and say, hey, you're not using the right one. Follow the instructions.
Okay, so
ideally, we would have a way ideally there would be a way to put this into the test connection, or give them a choice here, and then as part of the test, what we could do is instead of calling to Adobe Stock, we call to IMS with that scope. There might be some method we could use for that. I'd have to look it up. You could verify that this combination is valid. Because if they choose the wrong one, then it'll just throw an error when they get to that point because they might not know. Because it might be a case where, one person goes in, creates a configuration, gives it to user number 2, and user number 2 inputs it here, and they put in the wrong thing, and then it breaks.
What do you think then about the approach if we'll try to access Creative SDK and we get an error? and then we'll try to retry with Adobe Stock Integration type, but that's
We're just
kind
hoping
of
kind of messy, but yeah.
it is. Yes, so this is something to think about. Yeah, we can decide on it a bit later. But anyway, so slowly, with this question, we are slowly moving from the demo part of the meeting to grooming. And I think we have a couple of stories to groom today. Is that correct? Elena, do we have some stories for grooming?
Did she disappear?
Let me check the list. Okay, I'm sharing my screen here. And yeah, there are two new stories created by Elena today. The first one is about user sign out from Adobe Stock. So I showed you the user sign in functionality that is still not merged, but almost done in the pull request. Here, when we do have a link in top right corner of the Adobe Stock grid for sign in. So this story is continuation of this that functionality, and once admin user is logged into Stock, that link should change to sign out link. And just allow user to sign out using the appropriate call to Adobe Stock to the API, and also removing the data from the database, the SS key and the refresh key. It's actually quite straightforward story. And the second one, let me switch to issues. So Adobe AMS login is available for third-party developers. That's the story we have started working on already, and it basically means to move Adobe Stock AMS login to a separate package. And right now, as we discussed it on the previous meetings, we moved out the Adobe IMS and the Adobe IMS modules, and we are planning to create a separate repository for them, move them to that repository, and release them as a separate package. That will be a dependency for Adobe Stock package, and that will be available for the developers to use as part of their Adobe integrations.
And yeah, Sergey, thanks for walking through these two stories that I knew, but also I moved one story from first milestone to the second milestone about the localization and updated that. So it would be nice if, like, during the licensing implementation, you will also run the scenarios on checking whether the Image attributes, if they exist on other languages, appear in other languages, that is basically the same that Magento admin language, and also any success or error messages that API returns also need to be localized, and localization need to match the language that is selected in Magento admin. So it's
Okay, so
rather like overarching story that just we can verify that all of that scenarios in the end of the second milestone when we have other stories done. So it's just like something to take a look during the implementation and make sure that it is in place.
yeah, I believe we use locale in every other call to the API, but yeah, it's hard to verify that story. Probably it should be verified at the very end when we'll have all the interface, so that
Yeah,
all of the elements of the interface are checked and localized, right?
exactly. Yeah, this is what I suggest.
Yeah,
I'm
got
just saying that this story is now in the scope of milestone 2.
good. Okay, we'll try to verify and prove it at the end of the
Thank you.
milestone. After we'll have some more exceptions, more error messages and stuff. It can be localized.
Hopefully we don't have many more exceptions. So just a couple of clarifications for me. Maybe I missed that from your discussion, but what I understood is that you ran guys into some issues, and it's not possible to provide the flexibility for users to decide which integration to configure to use stock, either stock or creative SDK. So now we need to recommend only like one integration. Is this right, or I just kind of missed something?
Yeah, so it's actually the continuation of our discussions during grooming meetings. As we identified, there are quite different behaviors of and assessed levels of Adobe Stock Integration and Creative SDK integration. And currently, as we started implementing the requests for user information, for user profile, we noticed that we have to perform different requests to Adobe Stock. So to IMS. So it will be it will be good for us to know which integration is used with Adobe Stock, is with Magento Adobe Stock Integration. That's why there was an idea to add another field to system configuration that can be used to specify which integration is used.
Okay. So we just store that data on Magento side and send the relevant request for user data if it's supported by the integration, right? Okay. Yeah, that sounds great.
So, do you think it's a good idea to add another field to system configuration?
Yeah, if it allows us to kind of have that flexibility for user to decide which integration to use, I think it's a good trade-off.
Okay.
But
and
just to understand,
Christopher,
this field, this field, it will be manually populated, or it will be automatically taken from somewhere?
yeah, it's designed to be manually populated.
Okay. Is there a way we can kind of pull that data based on other credentials that users insert?
To find out what kind of integration type it is?
Yeah, because it's a high risk that they would kind of either
make a mistake.
don't understand, make a mistake, and that would cause lots of problems.
I mean, you can I think, I think you could use the lowest common denominator is you could just request the OpenID scope, and that should work for both. But then you lose the ability to get the profile and to do other things.
And this is what we want to have.
Well, I guess that's the thing. I mean, it sort of depends on the use case. If in the case of an integration where this is only going to be used internally for that, so the developer who's creating this and is creating the integration is a member of that company, and this is only going to be used by members of that one company, it's probably okay to use the stock integration. But if the user, and also if they don't care to display the username or anything like that, then that's probably okay too. But if it's a case where a developer maybe works outside the company, or multiple users might be signing in and they might be in different companies, it would be much better to use the Creative SDK scope, because then, first of all, it'll ask their permission to access their information. They give permission. Later on, they can withdraw permission from that developer's app integration. And also, as a side effect, you could also access like their username and email address if you wanted to display those or do something with them.
From my perspective, stock integration is better for kind of mid-sized companies that have their own like account, Adobe account bound to the company, not to the particular person, and they're going like to share that account across the organization, kind of to use it for all of the content managers to search for stock images. And in this case, they really don't need to see that profile information, and it's not very critical to kind of understand how many credits they have left and assess that information before licensing. But if it's really like small merchant and they rely on someone's personal account, and this person needs to understand, okay, so how many credits I have left, can I afford to license the image? So in this case, the personal information and the number of credits left is kind of more important. So that's why we want it. And if I remember, there are different types of users supported by
well,
different...
yeah, there's that too. But
yeah,
I mean, I guess it's more. I guess sort of the issue is, if one of your partners was large and they built an integration that anyone can use, and they use their own API key, and they allow anyone to sign in, and they have sort of a hosted cloud-based configuration, and so any user can sign in. If they use the stock integration for that, that would probably be bad, because everybody who signs in, that developer, assuming let's just say they're a bad guy, or a bad guy gets control, they could access anyone who signs in to their account. They could go and drain all of their credits, and those users would have no way to do anything about it other than canceling their accounts. They would never be able to go and withdraw permission for that bad developer to stop using their credentials. At least that bad user could use their credentials for 2 weeks. Now, if this is a small company, you know the developer, the developer is a member of your company, it's probably no big deal. You can find him, you can probably fire him. But in the case of a developer who creates an integration where anyone signs in, that's the risk. So that's why the Creative SDK, it has that protection that you can you can withdraw your permission after the fact, and then no one else can still use your credits. Now, the user would still have to sign in at least once. This is not, so in all cases, in both cases, the user still has to sign in at least one time. It's just more of a question of what happens after they sign in. If you want additional security, I would go with the Creative SDK option. But yeah, it sort of depends on who's using it at that time and what the use case is.
And actually, because of that, we wanted to kind of explain that to users and allow them to decide which option is better for them.
Yeah. Right. So if they do have two options, now then the question is, what do we display? It would be difficult to know for your application, for your integration, to know which type they've chosen. So we really want them to tell us when they set it up. So if they choose one of the two, we should know which one it is, and then there should be some way to confirm that. Or we just say, everyone do this one thing, and that's just the way it is.
Do you mean that Creative SDK has so many benefits that we should just go with it?
Well, that's just the one. It's just the one that's more protected. So if we just required everyone to use that, and you always called the Creative SDK scope, then if they try to use the stock only integration, it should fail. And then we could have some documentation explaining, hey, did you follow the instructions? The instructions say, it's not intuitive, but use Creative SDK, not just Adobe Stock. So if you require it at the integration level, I mean, a developer could go in and change it because it is open source. But if you just require that, then there won't be any reason to even give them a choice. You could add in a step to verify. Maybe in the verification step we could make sure that that's what's happening. But then that would be the safest choice, I think.
What do you think, Elena?
So I keep forgetting what is the difference between login, between all of this too. If we allow only Creative SDK, will we be able to display the profile information?
Yes, that's the one that does support profile information.
Okay, and which user types we're not going to support with the Creative SDK?
So that's where it gets tricky. So with the Creative SDK, it will support any individual user, what we call type 1. If the company has a type 2 or type 3, if they're enterprise and they have done some certain things to their identity, it will block them from logging in unless they contact us and ask us to whitelist them. I don't really mind that. I don't really mind if they do that. You can give them I have my group ID. That way we know, because that way we have a little bit of control and visibility on who's actually using this, because then I can be a gatekeeper to allow them to give them this access, and then we know, hey, these companies, But that's up to you. It just that's kind of how we do it today. We tell customers to go out and sign up for this, and they come to me if they need to allow enterprise logins.
So when you mentioned that if there are type 2 or type 3 and did something to their identity, so it means when they set
more
up,
like the other way around. So if they have an enterprise account or enterprise stock, they are not automatically become type 2 or type 3. They have to actually go into the admin console and what they call claim the domain. So they say,
Okay.
okay, my domain is, myimages.com or, mychairs.com. So they would claim mychairs.com. So anyone who has an email address with Christopher@mychairs.com or Elena@mychairs.com automatically becomes part of their domain. That means they become type 2. Now, they would have to do an additional step if they want to also use their own identity provider. So they have Active Directory login and some kind of single sign-on. So they would have to do one more step if they wanted to become type 3. But
got it.
if they do nothing at all, which some of our smaller customers do, some of our smaller customers don't do any of this, they just are by default all type 1. So type 1 is automatically supported for all Creative SDK. Type 2 and type 3, that's where they would need to come and ask us. And then we just put in a ticket. It gets resolved in a few days and it's done.
So do you have any data how many type 2 and type 3 users you have in stock?
I don't. I would have someone, we've done this exercise before. We find it's not super significant. It's actually a smaller portion, and it generally tends to be only larger enterprises do this.
So we are speaking like hundreds, thousands. Just to understand the scale, is it hundreds, thousands, or what?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to ask. We could pursue that as a separate thread offline if you want to.
Okay.
I can put you in touch with, because I remember we did this before when we were working with Hootsuite, and we found that there really aren't a lot. That the majority of our enterprise customers are still using type 1 logins. Although we are trying to push them, we're trying to get them to do type 2 and type 3. So actually we are trying to encourage them. It's just the majority are not using it.
Understood. So if you're saying that like from your gut feeling, it's more like larger enterprises and you don't feel that it's big number of those companies. So I think it's safe just to restrict to Creative SDK and have that understanding that if there are other types of users, we just need to have a manual like workflow so those users can contact their CSM and CSM knows who contact on Adobe side to enable them.
Yeah.
Probably we can have it as part of our documentation, like instructions for setup.
Yeah.
With a condition.
Yeah, and part of the enablement for our CSMs and sales. It's more on my side, don't worry.
That sounds good to me.
So I'll update documentation, the user stories then to reflect that we only support Creative SDK.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, agreed.
Good, thanks, guys. I think that's it, at least from my side. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or any other input? If not, then see you in a week, next Tuesday.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye.